Okay, so I'm here with,
Mitchell Donnelly.
and today we are going to be interviewing about freshwater ecosystems. Now, why do you think protecting freshwater ecosystems should be important?
Well, obviously, we need fresh water. It's our lifeline. So we've got to make sure we always have attainable water, and then also to protect the ecosystems that a lot of communities rely on for economy, food, and just quality of life.
All right. And what are some common threats to freshwater ecosystem, and how do you think they can be mitigated?
So I think drought is a common threat. Not holding on to the water that we do have access to. For example, you have snowpack in the Sierras, and a lot of that water ends up in the ocean. Like, how can we divert that water, hold on to that water? When they build new, like, suburbs, are they impacting, like, wetlands? I've seen wetlands destroyed to build new communities. Are they putting things in place to keep that fresh water flowing? Because once you remove the water, you totally change the ecosystem. Pollution, obviously, and then just recreation. Are people doing their part to keep these ecosystems clean and healthy?
Now, how do you think climate change is affecting freshwater ecosystems?
Well, I mean, obviously, weather's going to change based on climate change, right? So, I think that it does impact it, but then the question then becomes to what extent, how much influence do humans have on that? How much can we control that? So, I think we need to focus on what we can do in the now versus trying to project 100 years down the road. Like, be aware of it, put policies in place to minimize our impact. But we've got, like, for example, you've got, a lot of pollution coming from sewage. And granted, a lot of that's going into the ocean, but that's an ongoing issue. Every time it rains, we have all this sewage being leaked into our local waterways, and there's nothing being done about it. And it's like no one talks about it. Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, we need to keep our water safe. And then the other thing, too, is contamination. Like, a lot of the water that people swim in, fish in, recreate in, it's got high levels of toxins such as E. coli, mercury, lead. I want to make sure the water that we're around is clean and healthy.
Yeah. Now, how do you think communities can be actively involved in sustaining freshwater
I
ecosystems?
think first is education, right? We need to educate the people through programs like Project Wild is an initiative that a lot of states have. So you educate the kids at a young age. Thanks, Aiden. Educate kids at a young age why it matters. Putting policies in place to protect those ecosystems. Trying to hold people accountable, and then just getting people outdoors. If they're involved in the outdoors, they're going to want to protect it. It's when you don't connect the two, and people need to be connected to the environment.
Yeah. And to spin back on the education, do you think public schools are doing enough to raise awareness about this and the problems of freshwaters?
I think it depends on where you're at. Like, there are some areas where people are around the water all the time, and the kids are involved and they understand it. And then you have other areas where, I have students that have, like, asked a class, and, like, 75% of them have never held a fishing pole. Like, there's no connection. And not to say everybody should fish, but are we getting people out into the great outdoors, and are we educating them? Do they even know where our water comes from? It's interesting. The Salton Sea is literally like 70 miles from here. And I would say 70% of our students at Westview don't even know what the Salton Sea is. And it's a huge issue. It's like the biggest man-made lake on this side of the Rockies, and people don't even know what it is. And it's literally like an hour drive from here. So, yes, I think we can do more to educate people.
Do you think local governance can contribute into helping?
Local governments?
Yeah. Or international?
Well, I think at the county level, it starts at the state level. You also have to figure out agriculture. Like, one of the issues of the Colorado River, like, if you study that, a lot of it's been states fighting over that water. I'd pause that. You're not going to be able to hear that. So, like, if you want to use, like, a case study, the Colorado River, a lot of states argue and fight over water access and allocation of that water. So the part of it's making sure that we have access to fresh water, right? Like, that's the big question. So local government has to make sure they're doing things so that we can have access to fresh water at reasonable cost. Also making sure that people use their water appropriately. Like, are there sprinklers spraying onto the concrete? And that's where we can help on an individual level, right? Lower the amount of water we need, change our landscape, things like that.
All right.